This episode of Midco Sports Magazine is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Hello, welcome again to Midco Sports Magazine. We are hitting you with some hockey in this edition of the program. And a story coming up that is not so much about the sport, but the way a South Dakota family is using the sport for support and to make sense of a daughter's untimely death due to depression. And in our Rewind segment, a young man who went from Liberia to what must have felt like Siberia at the beginning, from Africa to North Dakota, with Menkeh Menden. But we start with a young man who is from North Dakota, grew up in Grand Forks, and is now playing college hockey at UND. But of course, there is a lot more to the story, and for that, here is Alex Heinert.
As the saying goes, everyone is from somewhere. For most of us, where you're from becomes part of your identity, a piece of your story, and it's no different if you're from Grand Forks, North Dakota, the hometown of Judd Caulfield. Like most kids from this city of 60,000 on the North Dakota-Minnesota border, Judd grew up with ice skates on his feet and a hockey stick in his hands.
Ever since I stepped on the ice, I loved playing hockey. I just love the speed and intensity of the game. I love the physical aspect of it too, just everything about it.
Whether playing in organized leagues or on the rink his father Bob built in the backyard, hockey was ever present in Judd's childhood. And like most kids from Grand Forks, he's had the same goal for as long as he can remember.
I always kind of dreamt of playing for UND, ever since I was little. I'd be at home watching the Sioux games, and then when I was old enough, I'd go to the games because we had season tickets.
To earn a spot on one of the nation's most storied college hockey programs isn't easy, and it doesn't just happen to anyone. But the thing is, Judd has never been just anyone.
Judd was probably 2'3". One morning I was down there and I was playing goalie, and Judd was shooting little softballs at me, and he was scoring all the time. And I was just like, no, dude, I'm gonna play here. You're not gonna score me. And he would just be picking the corners and stuff, and I'm just like, oh. And I was just like, I think he could be our player here.
But while his parents could see their son's potential from an early age, it took Judd until high school to realize he had a chance to do something special within the sport he loved.
Between my freshman and sophomore year, there was a camp out in Buffalo that I did pretty well at, and there was a lot of the other high-end guys from around the country, so I think at that point I kind of realized I could accomplish some pretty good things.
That tryout was for the U.S. National Team Development Program, the pinnacle of amateur hockey in America. Since 1996, the NTDP has scouted and selected the top 22 youth players in their age group in the country and invited them to join the Michigan-based program for their final 2 years of high school. It's an elite route that not many get to take, but it was a path that Bob had hoped would take shape for his son, even if it meant moving him across the country.
Knowing that, hey, he might have to go away when he's 15 years old, or 16, that I was comfortable with that, because I knew that if he was able to make that team, that'd be the ultimate goal, and that'd be the best for him in the long run for his development.
At the end of the tryout camp, they all had little meetings with us and just kind of told us we made the team.
He did make the team, and to be on what they're saying is the best team in 21 years is pretty phenomenal.
Judd's version of Team USA was full of elite prospects, a who's who of future college stars and soon-to-be NHL draft picks. The summer after leading Grand Forks Central to an undefeated season and a North Dakota high school state title as a sophomore, the quiet 16-year-old from Grand Forks traded the comforts of home for the national team facility in Plymouth, Michigan.
It was definitely tough making that transition into leaving my house and my family and friends behind, but I feel like it was the right decision to make. All the guys are kind of in the same situation. They're moving away at 16 years old, so we just all all bonded together and helped each other out.
Judd would spend the next 2 years playing for Team USA in the USHL, in various international tournaments, and against some of college hockey's premier powers in exhibition action. Even now that it's over, the impact of Judd's experience is still difficult for him to put into words.
It's kind of surreal, I guess. I don't know really how to describe it. Obviously it's a real honor to play for your country and get to represent them internationally, so it was a great experience.
Just how good was Judd's NTDP squad? This past summer at the NHL draft in Vancouver, a record 17 of the 22-member team were drafted, headlined by top overall pick Jack Hughes and 7 others in the first round, and including Judd, who was picked by the Penguins in the 5th.
It was unbelievable being there with my family. There's nothing better I could ask for. It's definitely very nerve-wracking because you have no idea when your name's going to be called, but just got to be ready for the moment and just embrace it. I'm not really sure how to describe it. I guess I'm just really pumped and glad to be part of the Pittsburgh organization. Really looking forward to it.
Like almost all draft picks, Judd's time in professional hockey is still a few years away. But while his goal of making an NHL roster is still ahead of him, that other big dream of his from his childhood, he's living it out right now. Judd's now almost a semester into his college career at UND, and he's found his niche in a North Dakota team that is having a season to remember.
Caulfield, nice feed, and Weston Mashad gets on the score sheet.
I'm just extremely honored to be able to represent my home state and hometown, I guess. So it's going to be a really good experience and really fun.
We lost him for a couple of years, but we get him back here at UND for the next, 3-4 years or whatever it happens to be. And that's a good trade-off, I think.
And joined now by Alex Heinert. All right, and this is a great story so far, but he's been around, had a lot of experiences on different teams in different places. But you get to college hockey, this is something different now, right?
Yeah, it's a big step up. Yeah. Even though he was playing for the U18 team, the best youth team in the world, now you're going up against men who are 22, 23, et cetera. And for Judd, for his skill set, it will take him a little bit to get acclimated. Typically, big forwards usually have the hardest time making the transition. It's easy for a goalie to jump right in from juniors to college hockey. Forwards will take a little bit. So we've seen flashes of what he can do early in this season. It'll maybe be a year or two before he becomes the type of guy that the Pittsburgh Penguins know he's going to be someday.
All right, but always fun to watch a Grand Forks kid make his way through. And
yes, sir. 13th player ever from the city to be drafted in the NHL. He's the next great one.
Appreciate it. Alex Heinert. Up next, from Africa to America, our rewind stories on a young man who left not only his home country, but his home continent to find a new life in North Dakota.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. Time to rewind in a story we first brought you in 2017. It's about a young refugee from Africa who made his way to Fargo, and he found out that sports can kind of ease that transition when you're making a monumental move like that. Here's Brian Shawn.
On senior night at Fargo South, the cheers from the stands for Menkeh Menden are some of the loudest of the night. Menden's journey at his high school is nearing its end, but his path to this point started long ago. He immigrated to the United States from Liberia when he was just 5 years old, a transition that was not easy.
Going to school with white kids compared to not even going to school at all in my country back home was very challenging. And when I came here, all I was with is my family, so I never knew the outside world.
After living in Minnesota for a few years, his family relocated to the Fargo area. As he acclimated to the community and tried to figure out where he fit in, the soccer field was a place Fargo South coach Dave Weiler took notice, and Menkeh knew he belonged.
And it's always interesting when the freshmen come for that first day of tryouts. And there's some kids who stand out and some kids who don't, and he's always been one of those kids who has always just kind of stood out in the crowd, and that's the kind of the way we got to know him.
There was Nepalis, there were Somalians, there were people from Congo, American people, everybody joined in the same group playing soccer, and everybody was just accepted. So that really made things more comfortable for me to get to know other people.
Menkeh has excelled in his time as a Bruin, a four-sport athlete on the field, track, and court. He's also an ambassador for the high school and was even up for Homecoming King. But what makes all these accomplishments surprising is what he's had to endure away from school for the last year and a half, after his mother moved to Minneapolis and his father back to Liberia. He and his brother, also a student at Fargo South, have had to support themselves, living on their own.
It is really strange. Here's a 17-year-old kid that I'm having conversations that you would be having with most adults. I mean, he's talking about going out and going grocery shopping, going out and having an alarm clock, and all the things that I take for granted that my parents did it for me. I do it for my kids, and he didn't have that.
To live on your own It's like you don't have your parents coming at your game every day. You don't have your parents picking you up from here to there, or telling your dad, hey, Dad, can you drop me somewhere? And I didn't have that. Me and my brothers didn't have that. We had to do all of that, ride bike and walk wherever we need to go. It's been very challenging.
Menkeh's schedule keeps him busy. When he's not at school, you can find him working at Sanford to pay the bills, which can mean some long days and having to miss some practices and even some competitions, like the state cross-country meet last fall.
Working is the hardest part. Filling out your schedule, filling this out, knowing what's your schedule like and putting it all together. Sometimes I have to miss practice, but I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do to support yourself sometimes.
Seeing that the hours he puts in and just the dedication he has for everything that he does, it just really impresses you and just kind of pushes you to be more like him.
But Menkeh has not been forgotten by his coaches, teachers, and teammates. Several families and friends have stepped up to help, providing him with meals, money, tires for his car, and other necessities. The efforts of many that have provided a system of support he needed.
He's been put in a situation where he has to grow up pretty fast. And so our family, and along with a lot of other families, at Fargo South have tried to provide some guidance and some stability to him.
After practice with his car, sometimes he'll have 6, 7 kids in his car giving them rides home. That's just him. I mean, hey, you need a ride? Hey, I'll help you out. So he's willing to give back just like he's given.
As for the future, Menkeh is already setting some lofty goals for himself, hoping to capitalize on the life he's built and run his way into the history books.
I know if I go there, start it off small, keep building on that, I can someday become one of the best runners from North Dakota. That's what I want to be. That's my goal, to become one of the best runners in college from this state.
When he gets into a place where he can settle in and be comfortable and not feel like he has to worry about some of these other things that he's had to deal with in the last 18 months or so, that he's going to really thrive, not only in the classroom, but probably on the track.
In a school and in a community with several families working through difficulties and challenges, Menkeh believes he is proof that the American dream can happen for anyone.
The situation Menkeh's in is one that a lot of kids at South, I would say, are in. And I think when people see him, they see that, really there's always a way that you can find your way out, and there's always a way that you can just make your situation the best it can be. And
I feel very proud about it. Not many 17-year-olds do this. Most of them have their families at home and they live with their families supporting them. But I've done it, and I can prove that anybody that goes through the situation, so long you have somebody on your back supporting you, a community, a family, that's not your biological family, but they're behind you, supporting you, knowing that you can succeed. Just keep pushing. You can make it through.
More Midco Mag to come, but first, why is there a huddle in football? The answer in Just So You Know.
The huddle was an idea introduced to share a plan for the next down without the opposing team hearing what you're about to do. But whose idea was it to group up in between snaps? Well, we have Paul D. Hubbard to thank for that. He was a deaf football player who was a quarterback in 1892 to 1895. His strategy was to gather up the guys to avoid the other team seeing the sign language in between plays. You can find the huddle in countless sports, from football, basketball, and volleyball to soccer, softball, and cricket. And almost every coach across the board can take advantage of this direction and motivation technique. Whether programs take advantage of the huddle or use a hurry-up offense to maximize time, we have Paul D. Hubbard to thank for this strategic move. Just so you know.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. Hockey players are known for their toughness on the ice, but following a tragedy, one South Dakota family is using the sport to show that if you're struggling, you can show vulnerability, and you should never be afraid to ask for help. Here's David Brown.
The ice. Cold, hard, and tough to crack. And it's where Brittany Corcoran felt the warmest.
She fell in love with it the second she smelled the ice.
She was always in dance, and we always picked on her and said hockey's way better. So then finally she started playing.
It was her younger sister Brianna, known by her hockey nickname Butchie, who had the biggest influence. Butchie was a defenseman, Brittany was a goalie, and a sibling rivalry extended from home to the rink.
She's kind of a brat on the ice, not gonna lie.
She loved to be in the net. She would sit at home with her gear on in front of the TV and say, "Hey Mom, throw things at me." We would spend hours just throwing balls and things, and she would sit and go for them and go for them. She loved it.
Fast reflexes and an affinity for guarding her territory,
and it's blocked by Brittany Corcoran,
earned Brittany her own nickname, befitting a warrior obsessed with stopping everything in front of her.
Whoa, a little exciting there.
Everybody would say how quick and how fast Britt was and how she could own that net, that she was just a ninja. Britt's favorite color was purple, and so thus became the Purple Ninja.
There's 5 senses, but everybody has that 6th sense. She just reacted to pucks like other people couldn't.
She knew everything on the ice. She knew where the puck was going to go before it even went there. She was just a great hockey player, and I could only dream to be as good as her one day.
But the euphoria Brittany felt between the pipes could only provide so much comfort. Her mom, Angela, started to notice changes in Brittany's behavior as a teenager.
There was just a turn that she had, and it just took over her mind. It's an illness that so many people don't understand, and soon her brain was telling her things that weren't happening.
Brittany was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, 2 opponents that couldn't be contained by her ninja-like quickness.
It was telling her she wasn't good and she wasn't worth it, and it just took over more and more each day.
At some points it was frustrating, and then sometimes I was kind of just defeated, you know, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm her sister, I'm supposed to be able to help her.
We fought a battle bigger than we even knew what we were fighting. You don't know how to explain it because it's not something that you can just see and fix it easily.
Multiple hospital stays and attempted treatments could only do so much. Brittany's team, both on and off the ice, was firmly in her corner. But despite a wave of support, Brittany's best defense simply wasn't enough.
March 24th, 2016 is the day Britt died. She got up, she took her sister to school, and then she went home and she took her life. I didn't see it coming that day, and I forever will question why I went to work that day.
Brittany Corcoran passed away 5 days shy of her 18th birthday.
A bouquet of flowers arrived, and I said, this can't happen. Brittany would be so mad. People are wasting money on flowers. We have to find a way to do something positive.
Later that fall, the Fight Like a Ninja tournament was born.
Brittany at me, 1, 2, 3, Brittany!
It was created to bring girls together, to show that grit, determination, and tenacity on the ice was on the same line as love, compassion, and understanding off of it.
We talked about different statistics here in South Dakota.
More than 5 times as many people died by suicide in 2017 than in alcohol-related minor motor vehicle accidents.
We talked about ways to talk to people, to just start conversations, because that's all it takes is one little question to let somebody know that you care.
You can have some wins and losses, and you can still come out the next day and play, or you can still go to the next day in life and go on with it. Everybody has wins and losses, just how you use them to your advantage.
It's hard to talk about her, but like if people bring her up, I'll say something funny that she used to do, or you know, I'll go places that we used to go together too. You know, the hockey rink's always a good one.
It was our home. that's where she should be.
The 4th annual tournament matched Brittany's old jersey number. It's a milestone and a benchmark as teams from across the Midwest continue gliding into Sioux Falls year after year.
It keeps Brittany in so many people's hearts, and it spreads such a great message, and it starts a lot of conversations with families.
Our breakdown before every period is Brittany on 3, and then the 4 taps after every game.
The warmth and kinship among these girls has created a unifying and unbreakable bond that can stand up to any cold truth or hard fact. But there's also a reality that the mask Brittany wore on the ice couldn't shield her from internal pain. Yet Fight Like a Ninja has become a rallying cry to remind those who are suffering that you don't have to hide your true identity.
She wasn't just the ninja, she was much more. She was a daughter, a friend, a sister, and the best person that I've ever known.
Britt's battle was long and it was hard, and she fought it with dignity and hope as long as she could. Now it's our turn to keep fighting. Unfortunately, we lost Britt to her battle, but we have a lot to go in fighting that war.
And joined now by David Brown. And Brownie, obviously the message is getting out there. People are more attracted to this tournament more and more every year, right?
Right. This was most recently the 4th Fight Like a Ninja tournament. More than 120 girls came from 3 different states representing different teams. There was, of course, the Ninja Hybrid team. It's kind of an unaffiliated squad, basically made up of any girls who want to participate that don't have a team. And they also give out a $4,000 scholarship every year. So it's pretty amazing to see what Angela's been able to do in just 4 short years.
Right on. And there's a good story about when Brittany was having her struggles with depression, and maybe it wasn't with her high school team. They would do something special in her honor whenever they went and played somewhere?
Absolutely. Whether it was Sioux Falls, Brookings, Watertown, Yankton, wherever they played, whether Brittany was with them or not, they would put a purple ninja sticker in every locker room that they visited. And of course, that purple ninja logo has kind of become ubiquitous with this tournament, this Fight Like a Ninja tournament. And it's obviously a very sad situation. And I think Angela's been doing her best to try and, as she said in the piece, make something positive out of this. It's so difficult to do anything positive in light of what happened to Brittany, but she's doing her best. And as you said earlier, the message is most certainly getting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks a lot, David Brown. Thanks for watching Midco Sports Magazine. You can find this episode and all episodes on YouTube and IGTV.
This has been Midco Sports Magazine, presented by Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.